I'd like to introduce Ricardo now. I know that he is not present at the moment, but I will still provide his introduction when he will be able to join us. So, Ricardo D. Allen is the founder and CEO of One-on-One Educational Services Limited from Jamaica. Ricardo's fervor for mathematics, fused with his affinity for technology and humanity, has culminated in a platform that revolutionizes the way thousands across the region engage with online courses, learning and teaching at their own pace. In 2016, Ricardo was chosen as the first recipient of the Young Leaders of the Americas Fellowship during the presidency of Barack Obama, a testament to his influential role in shaping education and leadership in the Americas. Before his entrepreneurial journey with One-on-One, Ricardo helmed the structured products division at Sagico Investments, Jamaica. Beyond his professional accolades, Ricardo takes immense pride in his roles as a doting father to two daughters, an exemplary big brother, and a devoted husband.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Ricardo Allen from One-on-One. Very pleased to be with you today. Today, we'll be talking a little about, kind of just cementing some of what was discussed today and going a little about kind of like the practical implementation. I actually have a model of DeepSeek behind me that I'm going to run and share it with you. But just to give you some perspectives on things. And I'd like to give you or take you on a little journey as to how we kind of got here, right? I would say about 4 years ago, or about 10 years ago, artificial intelligence has always been something that has been discussed. But just like many things, it almost felt like this, pie in the sky kind of thing, right? Something that we want to achieve, but it's not going to be anytime soon, right? And then in November 2022, we saw the release of ChatGPT. And it took everybody by surprise, a lot of persons by surprise, and some not so much, right? Some who were exposed to it and so on. And then since then, there's been so much development, rapid development in the AI space. You have different persons coming up with their own what we call models. And, we had so many things going on and it's moving so fast. And for organizations like yourself or the ones that you represent, the question is that how do you keep up? How do you ensure that you keep up while remaining secure? And at the same time, how do you not get left behind simply by fearing it and say, boy, I don't want any of this. It's moving too fast. I don't want my team members to be sharing anything with the AI. And so, let me step back a little, right? The challenge is if you do that, your competitor may be figuring out ways to use it in ways that is safe, right? And if they can figure that out while you're trying to stay away from it, right? In a couple of years, you may not be in business, right? And so I think that's the big kind of focus I want to make today. And how can we use AI safely within our organization and giving our team members the power to kind of do what they do really fast, really productive, etc. And from my own personal story, we run a company right here in Jamaica with 50 employees, 20 of which are developers or engineers focused on artificial intelligence. At One-on-One, our mission when we started in 2013 was to personalize education and training using artificial intelligence. So we were talking about it 10 years ago, but we really didn't have all these resources to get it done. Now you have models that are a dime a dozen. Now let's see if we can understand how AI works, right? Because understanding how AI works help to understand exactly what I'm going to tell you about how to keep it safe, right? And to kind of give you a synopsis as to how AI works, right? I'm going to be kind of sharing my screen and taking you through this. And you will definitely kind of see where we're going here. So let me just kind of make a quick change here. Okay. You should be seeing my board. Right. Yeah. So if you were to kind of think of back in high school, right? You did math where you did matrices, where you had a multiplication of two things and you got something, right? This is what we call our matrix, right? And this is what we call our input or data, right? Coming in, and this is our output, okay? Okay, so these are the three things, right? Now this matrix has a bunch of weights, right? That is applied to some input or data that you put in and you get an output. This is all an AI model is. There's something that they add to this that is called a bias. And for this bias, what it does is that it takes an output and it gives you a better response together, right? So this is what it is. So when you hear about GPT and the DeepSeek and all of these models, all it really is matrix algebra, where this model takes an input, apply a matrix to it, and then you see the output. Now, it seems smart because what it's doing is using this input matrix and it's applying to the text, and it's, you know, kind of telling you what comes in line. So it says, I am Ricardo Allen. And it does that in a way that you believe, right? But all this is basically predicting what's the next thing that should come. In this case, a full stop should come after, right? Now, given this, and given that this is the framework, what do we have? We have a situation that when you load a model, for example, let's say a DeepSeek model, and when you use a DeepSeek model, this model, which is this entire thing, has to get stored on a server, right? And this server sometimes can be at your location. This is your physical company, or it could be in the cloud, right? This is, for example, AWS or something like that, right? But if it's at your physical location, it's stored there. And then on top of this server, you have the model kind of sitting on it. So you can think of the model sitting somewhere here. So this is the DeepSeek, and it's sitting on the server. So whether that server is in your location or in the cloud, it sits there. And then when you use it now, when your users are using, so this is your user, and when they go to their computer and they're actually using the models, they're either communicating to the cloud to use it or in your specific location. As my co-presenter mentioned, if you're going to the cloud, that data is going out and it is being stored on some server somewhere. Now, let's say, for example, this server is based in China, where DeepSeek server exists, right? And you're sending data out, and you're sending, let's say, company recipes, you're sending the ways you make your product and so on out. What it is that it's going out and it's being stored on an external server where they have access to your data, right? And everything that you're sharing. They're also giving you back feedback. And so if their feedback is biased, right? Yeah. If this feedback is biased, then the Chinese, for example, can send you feedback that is perhaps, guess what? Biased as well. And if this feedback is too biased, they can influence your decisions and so on. So this is a quick kind of crash course in kind of how these models work and why it is important in what we're talking about. Now, here's the thing. How do we, in this kind of context as companies, right? How do we ensure that given that these are, or this is the way it kind of works, how do we ensure that we protect ourselves, our organization, and so on and so forth, right? And this is what we're going to talk about. Now, there are several ways to do this, some more complicated, some a little easier, but we're going to talk about enterprise AI and why it is important. Now, in my own situation at One-on-One, we have a team of developers and we write code, and we write a lot of code. And so in writing code, it's important to maintain our intellectual property in-house. And so we had two options. Do we continue using a chat GPT where we're constantly interacting with our code in the space, in the internet space? Or do we download a version of that large language model and so we interact with it locally so we're not sending out data? Now, in the case of DeepSeek, a lot of persons have been saying, is it safe? Does it work? Well, if I were to kind of share with you now, we actually have a version of DeepSeek running here. And I'm going to share with you what that looks like. So if you look at my screen, I'm bringing it up now. If you look at my screen, it's coming up. So if you look at my screen, you will see that we've downloaded a version of DeepSeek and we're running it locally. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here is a chat bot right here that I have actually asked a question. Hi, how are you? So I'm going to say hello, for example. Let me just kind of bring up my thing. I'm going to say, hey, right? And it's responding. If you realize there's a DeepSeek model 1.5 that is right here, right? And it's operating. So it's thinking, and then it's going to respond. Now, to prove to you that I'm running this locally, I'm going to share with you in my settings here, right? Let it respond. So it's thinking first. This is something that the models do. It tells you kind of what it's thinking about. And this has been one of the groundbreaking things with DeepSeek. That chain of thought, you're actually seeing how it's actually reasoning through the things that you're asking, right? So you're seeing that before it even responds. And then it tells me, hi, how can I help you? If you look into settings, you'll see that I'm running everything locally through Olama, and I'm running the DeepSeek 1.5 model. So that's actually the model that's responding. So I'm actually not connected to the internet now, right? Now, why is this important? It is important because in your own organization, you could do this very same thing, right? By downloading the model, which is just a matrix, there's no risk in doing that. You cannot inject or do anything in a model that can harm a computer, because that's all it is a model, right? It's matrix, it's a function. It takes an input, gives you an output. But where you host, that becomes a problem, right? And so for companies, you have an organization, you have a bunch of team members like we have. What we do is that we download the model and we actually host the model on our local servers, whether it is on the machine itself, or we host it on a server in a server room, or we host it in a cloud that we can manage. Once we host that model there, persons and our team members who interact with the model, they're using the data that we have for our organization, keeping it within our space, right? Now, importantly, this data is not just a code base. It could be your email. It could be the meetings that you've had. It could be important documents, policies, and procedures that you have in your organization. And these may be stored in folders. Where are they stored? Folders, they're stored. Your email, it's probably backed up. It could be banking transactions. Whatever you have, whatever your data store is, you can essentially connect that into your large language model. And by connecting the two, it allows you to have more meaningful responses. Now, to see that at work, I'll take the next minute and the final minute of my time to show that part to you. Okay? So again, this is just a model. All it's doing is just taking what I'm asking and it's responding. That's all it's doing. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't have any knowledge about my company or whatever we're doing, right? But if I were, for example, to let me see if I can bring this up. Right. If I were, for example, So if I were, for example, to get to this point, right, here. So you should be seeing my screen now. Let me just go back here. Right. So if I were, for example, to show this to you. So let's see if we can understand what's going on here, right? So here is your question. So this is what you call your chat interface. So the same way you talk to ChatGPT, this is where it goes. And then here is your specific knowledge base. This is knowledge for your company. So this is emails, right? These are documents in your company, all stored in your location. These are transactions, anything that are important to you, right? And then what you do is that you have something called a smart retriever that when a user asks a question like, what were my sales this month, right? What were my sales, right? For example, that smart retriever goes and fetches the data that is relevant, returns the relevant documents, and then the question plus the documents goes into the large language model, which could be DeepSeek that you're running locally. And then from that, it generates a response based on the document that you have added here, right? And this is kind of an explicit source informed answer. So this is the framework that you use to host and run AI locally to safeguard your data, to safeguard your processes, and to avoid sending that information out to the World Wide Web. The cybersecurity guys will tell you that if you don't send anything out, you can't get hacked, right? If you don't pull anything in, you can't get hacked, right? Or it's very difficult. I won't say you can't. It's very difficult to get hacked. So the point is that this is a way to run what's called enterprise generative AI. It is essentially hosting your models locally or in the cloud and leveraging your existing data sources to ensure you get meaningful responses. I'll leave it at that before any questions.